Simon Miller is a professional YouTube moron, host of Thing, actor, self-styled idiot, and wrestler. He has performed for Defiant, NFW, Kapow, Elite Wrestling Entertainment, and Vortex Pro Wrestling. He is the former host of Progress Wrestling and the star of the Impact Wrestling UK Tour of 2023. He is the Wizard of White, and he once delivered a stone cold stunner to Mr. Blobby. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Miller time. This is Simon Miller. How are you, Simon?
I'm great now. You reminded me of the Mr. Blobby thing, so I'm now happy. And I also regret not picking one of those pictures for this. But we'll talk about it. We can talk about it another way.
We can talk about that later. Is stunnering Mr. Blobby the greatest thing you've achieved in pro wrestling to date?
I mean, it's up there. Just going toe to toe with Mr. Blobby. I was just stood there like, we're peaking, Simon. Just so you know, you need to hold on to this moment. This is it. It's downhill from here. And the best thing is, obviously, when Americans see it, they're like, Simon, why are you fighting some weird alien creature? They have no idea. He has no crossover appeal whatsoever.
That was my favourite thing about it completely. It's just like, what is this? The whole American audience was just like, what? No wonder the UK's got so many problems.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, I've always blamed a lot of our current day problems on Mr. Blobby. So they were ahead of the game, to be honest. It's always Mr. Blobby.
Portrait of Wrestler, we like to talk about your 3 favourite images. One from all of wrestling, one from your career within wrestling, and then your favourite photograph from anywhere. But we start, as we always start, with your first promo picture. Let's have a look. Simon Miller.
I hate it.
Talk to me about this.
Talk to me about this. Well, I mean, there are so many things I can't stand about it. I mean, one, we've gone with generic, we must shout at the camera because we're a professional wrestler for no apparent reason. My favorite thing on any wrestling poster is how many people are screaming, and it's always at least 75% of the poster. So I bought into that, but the real reason it gets me is I just don't like that ring gear. I don't want to go too off piste here, right? I'm happy to, but I don't want the audience like, Miller, why do you always take it into the deep dark reaches of somebody's brain? But the reason I went with ring gear like that is because look, I'm already way nervous about debuting as a professional wrestler. I've already got all these things going on in my head. No way am I going out there in my pants. No way. No way can I go out there and potentially, again, this is all an internal, back and forth, but no way can I go out there and also be judged for my physique. And so I tried to get a singlet made, got it completely wrong, kind of got this extended baby grow instead. At the time, I think it was serviceable. It's very much, you can kind of see evolution when it comes to what people wear. But I don't know, I just look at myself there. It's just, I'm not that young, but so young compared to now. So innocent, so clueless about what the future holds.
Because you came to wrestling quite late, didn't you?
Yeah, I tried to train a couple of times, but again, I always do this. I didn't even mean to. Going back to mental health, I couldn't hack it. First time around, I had a proper old school horrible trainer, and he just treated me badly. He just did. I'll die on that hill. I don't think it was, we have to treat you with respect for the business. It's like, no, this is just abuse. That's all this is. You're just abusing me. And then second time, I don't even remember now. I just didn't apply myself. Whereas, so third time, just as I was sort of heading towards the big 3-0, I was like, it's now or never, Simon. You got to go and do it. So I was like, but that time I promised myself, no, we're seeing it through. And because it was around about the same time as I joined What Culture, and so I kind of got to marry those two things up. So I got to record videos and do it. That was just a really good way to stay focused. Because it's like, well, if you do quit, Simon, you're quitting for you and lots of people that are watching you on the internet. So don't do that. So actually, it worked out very well. And yeah, like DDP. I always say DDP was always my inspiration because, of course, he was like, 6 years older than I when I got into it. And then everybody always comes back with, and like Batista. I'm like, Batista don't count. If I like Batista, I start at 72. What difference would it make? You just walk into any training room when you're Batista, and actually DDP should probably be in there because DDP is like 6'5" or something crazy. But I mean, come on, Dave Batista would walk onto any show after one bump. They'd be like, put him on a show.
It's like the old Big Show story. I think it was Dusty Rhodes was the first one to train Paul White, and day one of training school, the trainers got around and said, right, we're going to take our first bump, and Dusty was like, why are we teaching him how to bump? He's going to be on TV for 3 years, and he's never going to need to know how to bump.
It's so true.
The other story about Batista that I really admire is the one where WWE sort of were poaching to invite him back around about the time the first Guardians of the Galaxy was due to be released as a bit of PR.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, well, you can come and promote your silly little film, your silly little cartoon, whatever it is. And it just went on to be the biggest thing ever. And he sort of said, yeah, I don't really need to return to WWE TV to promote that. I reckon I'm okay.
I don't know whether you've heard of Marvel Comics. It's quite a big deal. They're doing all right at the moment. You got to love them. You got to love them.
We now move on to your favorite photo from you in wrestling. Now, you're going to need to hold my hand a little bit and talk me through a little bit of background on this one. I'm really keen to know because it's a really moody picture. Talk me through this, Simon.
Yeah, so I mean, this has a whole backstory behind it, really. So this is from Progress Wrestling. Shout out to Progress Wrestling. Now, obviously, there's lots of things we can say about where British wrestling is at the moment, but I still totally believe that when you're talking about the top promotions in the country, Progress is in the conversation, right? I know a lot of people are like, whatever, I don't need to get into all that hoorah. Maybe it's a different conversation for a different day. But when I first started getting into pro wrestling, so many people, as wrestlers and just people around the industry like to do, they would come up to me and they'd say, oh, Simon, you're already screwed. No one is ever going to want to book a YouTuber that's also a wrestler, especially not Progress Wrestling. That's what a lot of people used to love to throw at me. And after a while, you just start to believe this stuff. But I was like, okay, well, that's a shame, but I'm enjoying the family shows, whatever we want to call it. You know, I'm just enjoying being a weekend warrior, etc. I'm having a good time. So I was like, that's fine. I can shelve it. And again, I'm much more of a person that is, let's take the opportunities that are there rather than worry about the ones that may, you know, come into fruition and maybe they don't. As luck would have it, my YouTube thing actually did help me get a foot door in Progress Wrestling, because when they did do their big rebrand and the company was sold, they needed a brand new host, and whoever it was, bless them, said, oh, you should get this wrestler, YouTube idiot. He'll be really good as the hosting job. So I said, absolutely, I'll do that, because even if it never goes anywhere else, I got to Progress, right? I'll take that. I'll tick that box however I can tick that box. So it was funny. Again, I won't name names because I like to be a positive guy. After I did that, so many promotions, again, all the due respect to them, smaller promotions, did get in touch with me and say, Simon, I can't book you now. I can't have a host as a wrestler. And I just like, you know, that A, I'm more than the sum of my parts, but also you do realize it's all predetermined, right? We can do whatever we want to do. So, you know, as soon as I got my foot in the door, though, I said to them, it would be great if one day I could wrestle here. Obviously, I'm wrestling elsewhere, but no worries if not. I'm just throwing it out there. And then as luck would have it, because I don't know whether the hosting was going well or, well, this was all leading to a feud with Tate Mayfair's. And I've always had really, really good chemistry with Tate anyway. So I think they picked up on that, because we used to have a back and forth when he would do his entrance and I would do his intro. I don't know I can't remember who sent it to me, so you have to forgive me. I don't even know who I should credit this for, but I will make sure that I credit them after the fact. But it was just all that stuff that again, anyone else would look at this photo and they wouldn't know any of that stuff. When I take all of that stuff and I kind of put it into my brain, and then I see this picture with the progress screen in the background, and again, I know what I'm seeing here. And also, it's a very flattering shot. It makes me look way bigger than I actually am. So I'll absolutely take that. But it was just like taking all these sort of small kind of things and putting it in there. I was like, you know, you could show that to anyone that knew nothing about wrestling. And they go, yeah, guys, it makes sense, he's a wrestler. Do you know what I mean? And it was just like, aha, all those people that tried to naysay me, at least I got a picture to prove the opposite on multiple levels. And then, yeah, on a much shallower plane, it was just, I look back at a lot of photos and I'm like, I don't like that, I don't like this. My poor girlfriend, who is a photo fiend, has to, you know, drag me kicking and screaming to have any kind of photo opportunity. But when this one came through, instantly, oh, that's a cool picture. Yeah, that's a really, really cool picture. And I just like, that's, you know, the fact that it's at Progress too, which again, I did hold on a little bit of a pedestal. And because I knew that it was going into the second match with Tate, that eventually was going to wind up with a big old street fight that we did again a few weeks ago. It was just all these things. And I mean, the only thing I do regret about it is that but although this picture helped with it, is I should have turned my elbow pads inside out so they were just black. Instead, I've got this weird logo. Ah, yeah, sweet. Adidas elbow pad. But again, no one else is going to notice those things but me. So yeah, it was just all of that. And also, you know, I'm ranting and raving here, having your name on the screen with the up arrow, which is obviously also a wink and a nudge to the YouTube stuff, which again, they just did all by themselves. And I was like, oh, I really enjoy that. I was just like, man, there's so much I can take from this. So yeah. It just pops me every time, to use proper wrestling vernacular. It puts a smile on my face. So when you said send me a picture, it's like that, boom, didn't even have to think about it. It's like, that's the one, and that's cool. Because if you'd asked me maybe even whenever this was taken, let's say a few weeks beforehand, I would have been just going through pictures. This one, maybe, I don't know, maybe that one. And also, yeah, it's not even an inaction picture, you know. It just is. It just exists.
It's a real sense of like intimidation coming to the ring, if that makes sense. So there's a sense of presence to it, which is helped by the lighting. So you've got this lovely little split lighting just coming across you. So half of you's in darkness, half of you's in light, and that's a real sort of split personality and kind of like a mysterious way to sort of like someone if you were to do it intentionally. I love the black and white conversion on it, and like you say, just having that little having you framed with the bit of like the strut on the side, but then having it framed on the other side with your name actually makes it look really, really nice. You do look like you're a beast who's about to come down to the ring. Batista's in trouble, man. If Batista's in the ring waiting for Simon Miller.
Damn right. Damn right. Problem is, I think he's like 6'4", so when 6 foot maybe just one Simon turns out, you're like, nah, bro, you're screwed.
I think that's what's lovely about photography these days as well, is that it's so accessible to so many people that people can capture moments that actually sort of strike a chord. You know, you're not reliant on just like one or two people around the ring capturing moments. You've got all sorts of fans capturing things, and I love the immediate sharing of stuff as well. Sharing of content means that you have the opportunity to actually find something like this that really, really has value to you, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it really is true. Like, you can have I had a match yesterday. I had a thing yesterday at Progress, and by the time you walk back through the curtain and you check your phone, people have sent you what you just did. And it's like, it's an amazing, I guess it can go both ways if you've totally made a mistake. But, you know, it's like that almost like instant gratification. And I think that's what wrestling is really good at. You do get instant gratification because you do something in the ring and you get a reaction. Either way, sometimes good, sometimes bad, and it kind of steers you in a certain direction. So it almost carries on the buzz that you get. So I really enjoy that.
We now move on to the next photograph, which is your favorite photo from all of wrestling. No one's picked this one yet, and it means no one can pick it. Yeah, no one can pick it for future episodes now as well. And it's this one here.
I mean, it's just the best, isn't it? It's just the absolute best. And my favorite thing about it is, and for years I didn't realize this, it's the blood on the tooth. Obviously, I was quite young when this match happened. For years, just because, I don't know, maybe I never looked at it properly, maybe just when you take a quick glance at it, your brain tricks you. I thought he'd lost the tooth. I thought it's where he chipped a thing. So when I actually realized it was blood, I was like, oh my gosh, it's even cooler than I thought it was before. But again, I think this is probably one where you do need to know, you need the camera to pull back out, because Bret Hart got me into professional wrestling, and Steve Austin kept me in professional wrestling. So and I was still super young. I'm not sure I totally understood the idea of a double turn or whatever, whatever kind of term we kind of use here. When I became super nerd wrestling fan years later, I think it's when I picked up on that. But there was still something about this match where, even internally, as silly as it sounds, I was like, well, Bret's my guy, but I really like this Stone Cold dude. Well, you start having a tennis game in your head. And the fact that, the match itself, as we all know, does end with Steve Austin, trapped in the sharpshooter, bleeding everywhere, refuses to give up. And it's just the ultimate way to get across this sort of brand new era of wrestling that we're about to move into, where he acts like a bad guy, he feels like a bad guy, he talks like a bad guy, but he's so damn cool and he's so damn tough that you can't help but like him, because he loses the match, right? That's why I love wrestling. He loses the match and everybody forgets that Ken Shamrock gets involved afterwards. He starts throwing Bret Hart around. But there's so many other little bits to it, but you can encapsulate that, I don't know how long it goes, 20 minutes or whatever, in this one photo as far as I'm concerned. And also, it is, Austin 316 had been around for 6, 7, 8 months at this point. I mean, the historic twisting that WWE did was, he said Austin 316. The next week he was, no. That's not what happened. This is the catalyst, right? Yeah. And it's from WrestleMania 13 to 14, where all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, who is this dude? And to know that it all starts with blood all over your face, I don't know. I think there's something, you just put it, you just described it far better than I could with the last one. It's that dynamic that you have, you can go left, you can go right, you have the good, you have the bad. And I just think again, for me personally, massively, it's my 2 favorites ever. And I don't think that's going to change now, because again, when you're a kid, you have a certain way that you feel about wrestling. But now that I know more about wrestling, and I've heard these two guys talk about it on Steve Austin's podcast, it just gives it, again, every time I see it, I feel something. And I think that's really important when it comes to cinematography in it, and it transports me back to 1997 when life was just completely different to how it is now, and yet here we are, and wrestling is still a constant. So yeah, I take a lot from this, as cheesy as it sounds.
It's really like, this is so evocative of the time, and like you're right in my wheelhouse here, because 97 through to 98 is my favorite year.
Yeah.
If I only had the analog of like 1 year of pro wrestling, I'd take this year, this WrestleMania to the next WrestleMania all day long. And I know that some of it doesn't age well, but it just transports you back, like you say. It's funny that the match previous Survivor Series, Austin Hart, was the real one that cemented Austin into that upper echelon.
Yeah.
So the work that Hart did with Austin in that match really made, oh right, so Austin is going to sit amongst this level now, which means that this match can happen. It's like, as you allude to, it's the perfect double turn. They couldn't have done it any better. No. It just worked. It worked out perfectly. It's synonymous. Anytime anyone gets this sort of blood, it happened with Britt Baker. It happened with Becky Lynch. Yeah. Anyone who gets this level of blood, it immediately goes back to this shot. Oh, it's the Stone Cold shot. Oh, it's the one with him screaming out in pain. And what better guy to do it with than Bret? And there's so many what ifs around this period of wrestling. I'll give you two, and they both involve Shawn Michaels. But the what if I only just recently found out about was that there was tabled in the run up to this that the main event was going to be Bret, Shawn, Sid. Because in a three-way, there's house show footage on social media that got released that showed firstly how brilliant that match was, but also the ending. And the ending was Bret puts Sid in the sharpshooter. Michaels climbs the turnbuckles, delivers a drop to Bret, pins Bret. Bret can't get his leg out of the sharpshooter. He's just put Sid in because Sid's laying on top of it, and that's how he gets the pin.
That's wonderful.
And it's just, and you're just like, oh, that's a WrestleMania finish right there. That's just brilliant. Right. That's perfect.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if that happens, then Austin Bret doesn't happen. And then if Austin Bret doesn't happen, maybe Austin doesn't start his elevation into the Team Canada summer and then beyond into everything else that really, really projects him. Yeah. The other massive what if, I think, of the whole, big picture of WWE, WCW, the whole wrestling makeup, is what happens if Shawn doesn't get injured at the Rumble. Yeah. And that's the Rumble in 98. Because if he doesn't get injured at the Rumble in 98, chances are he's probably not going to drop that belt to Austin at WrestleMania. Probably. And if he does drop that belt to Austin, Austin doesn't go into his next feud, which propels the WWE into the stratosphere. Austin stays in a feud with Shawn Michaels, which I'm sure would have produced amazing matches, but would have been a completely different dynamic, because DX stays as just like those two guys with China. It doesn't get propelled into the bigger group, and it's a completely different makeup. I've no doubt that WCW combusts. I've no doubt that happens, but I don't know how stratospheric in terms of, because I remember, I'm sorry, I'm just talking a lot now, but I remember Tyson at 14 was proper mainstream, because that was on Sky Sports News when Tyson turns up at Raw. You remember? Yeah. So it's like, they're delivering like the Premier League results and stuff about Alan Shearer and the England team, and then, oh, by the way, Mike Tyson's doing wrestling now. What? Which is insane. Which is the mainstream, culture, I suppose, that they crave so highly, and they've got now with their new Netflix deal as well. All of a sudden, WWE, the stratosphere's limits has just gone mainstream. It really has, in so many people's eyes. So, is that what my question for you in a long-winded way? Is that also you say that you were younger and you first got into it and you love Bret and all that, and Bret and Austin? Is this your favorite era of wrestling, of all wrestling? Do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think 97 is my favorite year in wrestling, because when you actually watch it, it's really good. Don't get me wrong, a lot of it is, let's not do that again. But, we evolve as we go. I believe more as well, because you just do. Like, I kind of knew what wrestling was, but it was so easy to suspend your disbelief. And I think it's just, for example, we were kind of talking about this before we hit record. Like, for so many people, my Steve Austin / Bret Hart for them is going to be Roman Reigns. And before that, it's going to be John Cena, because you cannot help the first people that you warm to in wrestling, they become your guys forever. No one is ever going to be able to come across and topple them, because they just can't, because you've not been exposed to these people before. So you grab a few and they're yours. and then other people come along and you like them. Like, I am a huge Miro/Rusev fan. No idea why. I just absolutely love him. I think he's totally underutilized. But even if tomorrow he was main eventing WrestleMania and stuff, he'd never get to these levels because he can't. I'm a man in his 30s, you know? The mortgage comes through and I'm like, oh, I got to worry about that. But when you're sort of, 8, 9, 10, it's totally different. It's no. Steve Austin and Bret Hart are everything to me. And it even kind of goes back to what you say, because it did get mainstream because, at school all of a sudden, I was the nerd that likes wrestling. And it felt like within 24 hours, all of a sudden the cool kids were like, no, what do you know about this Raw stuff? What? And then you were like, wait a minute, I was being pushed in the dirt for this yesterday. What happened? And then in what felt like a week later, everyone is doing stunners. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's doing rock bottoms and people's elbows. And you're like, holy crap. And I think that's another reason why I love it too, because all of a sudden it felt like it was like a rush. And you could go to school and you could talk about it. And everybody wanted to know what's going to happen here. What does this mean? And it was just really, really exciting. It launched them into a completely new stratosphere because, of course, I didn't see the 80s in real time. I came to that way after the fact. So this was my, 1986 boom period or whatever. And I would argue, that we're in that again right now, but it's been 20 odd years, if not more, 25 odd years. So, almost 30 really. So it's just crazy that once this had got me in, or stuff before this, but maybe this has cemented it for me, you'll stick with wrestling even when it's totally crap, which it was for a great period, especially after WCW died. Now, don't get me wrong, Bill Goldberg doesn't get the credit that he deserves because WCW was dying and they found Bill Goldberg and they managed to sort of ride that wave for a good year before it did capitulate. But I remember how, when we especially got to sort of 2005, 2006, it's just never good having a monopoly because you can be lazy. Of course you can. Do you know what I mean? Like we see, there are platforms this may be going on that are super lazy and they need to sort their algorithms and they don't. But they don't have to. So, I think there is so much where it takes you back to a different time. And again, the cool thing now, especially with Bret Hart, is he's become like a fine wine, right? People appreciate him so much more now in 2024 than they did even a few years after this. So I like that comes into it as well. Like, everyone knows that Bret's the best because he is, as he told us all the time.
Man, yeah, and so many people, someone mentioned to me very recently, so many people talk the talk, so many people talk a big game. Bret is the only one who walked up to Vince McMahon and punched him in the face.
Yes, he did.
Drilled him.
We move on now to your favourite photograph of all time. And yet, as you allude to, it is a photograph with no context whatsoever. So please talk me through this.
Yes. So I went from it from a perspective of something that meant something to me. And again, you could show this to anybody and it could be a picture that a representative of a festival took to advertise on social media. The cool thing is, I took this photograph. This was me on a rubbish old, it's probably a good, it was only 2016 or whatever it was. So I assume my phone had a good camera. But this is how far we've come, everyone. This is the level that we could get out. So this is at a festival in 2016 where Metallica were headlining the show. Now, I had been a Metallica fan club member for 10 years. And the reason I've been a Metallica fan club member for 10 years is because they said, listen, if you join the Met Club and you make sure you enter every single meet and greet opportunity, that's what doesn't exist anymore. We promise you within a decade, as long as you enter every single one, so your name keeps popping up, eventually we'll just go, this guy has to be entered into the meet and greet. So I bought tickets for this show anyway, because Metallica play, I go. I'm a huge obsessive Metallica fan. It's a real problem and I need help with it. And I was always going to the show, and then I was sat at home one day, ping, email comes up, Simon, you have won the Metallica meet and greet, ipso, blah, blah, blah. So absolutely freak out. But this was the time, Metallica being the massive conglomerate that they have become, they were like, this is also happens to be the show where anyone in the meet and greet is allowed to be on the stage with the band. So I was just going nuts. I was like, there's no way this can be true. But go to the festival, get there early, get to sneak through into this little door, meet the entire band. Now, you think that would be one of the photos I would share, but this means more to me. But we did all of that because the meet and greet was great. But, you know, these guys have 1,000 things to do that day. So it's very much like, nice to meet you, sign this. Nice to meet. I mean, still amazing. It's still something I hold dear. But I get it, right? You can't have a conversation with them. Although actually Lars, because he's Lars Ulrich, did talk to everyone for about 20 minutes because that's just what he's like. But still, it's robotic because it has to be robotic because otherwise how are they ever going to get this done? Still amazing. Still loved it. But then got taken into this room, were given a band, and walked up onto the stage. Probably me, my mate, and maybe 18 other people. There can't have been more than 20. So this is before they came, obviously. And you walk out and you see this sea of people. And again, I actually have pictures that I took of James Hetfield as he's playing right behind me. And it's cool, but it looks like a Google image. It means something to me, but you could Google image James Hetfield on stage and somebody probably takes a picture like this. This one, before the band came out. And again, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I was in a band. I had illusions of grandeur. We went on the road and we toured. Oh, we're going to be a massive band. And eventually, I don't think we're that good, to be honest. I don't think it's gonna happen. But to even get that kind of an experience, and I think there was 95,000 people there, right? It was like a football stadium amount of people. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but that's the kind of stupid numbers people were throwing around. But to look out, see all those people before the band got there, and kind of, again, we're wrestling fans, we suspend our disbelief, kind of pretend, imagine this was for, something you had created, even though it wasn't. It was really overwhelming, and it was super duper cool. And for anyone that knows Metallica, they come out to the Ecstasy of Gold by From the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So when that hit, and I was looking out, I was an emotional mess. I was like, it's the greatest moment of my entire life. And somehow it's all encapsulated in this for me, where, like I say, a few minutes before they came out, it's two reasons, actually. One, I'd never actually thought I'd be able to even experience this in this way. But two, I love the idea that you have thousands of people looking back at us going, who the hell are those guys? Why are they on the stage? It doesn't make any sense, because I didn't know Metallica were doing that at the time, and I was a mega fan. I was obsessed. I only knew when the email came through. So I just love it. And the fact, would it have been better if I had a high-end camera? It looked great, yes. But the fact I just snapped it on my phone and I still go back to it, it gives it more. Do you know what I mean? It's more real, as they say, more human.
It's wonderful, and the fact that, so from a technical standpoint, there's an analogous color scheme which is really, really appealing.
Oh wow, there we go.
But do you get transported back to that moment every time you see it?
Every time, and that's why
you
it's my
can
favorite.
feel it.
Yep. Even now, I tell you, when I start talking about it, I get goosebumps on my hand like an idiot. But I just do, because I remember it like it was yesterday.
That's all that matters, and that's just brilliant. And what a privilege, and what a moment, and what a wonderful thing to share. And that's what this bit's all about, because we've had everything from wedding photos, engagement pics, pictures of people's children. It mainly, when people actually have their favorite photos, they're intimate family moments, because those are the things that really matter, But also these experiences that you get once in a lifetime. And as you allude to constantly, this could have been better. I had photographs of more famous people on this same reel, but the moment of you enjoying this thing that you wanted to do so much when you were younger. And I know it sounds silly, I wanted to be a band when I was younger, but these are all thoughts that you have as a teenager, isn't it? What if one of these amazing things happens? And then for them to actually offer you the opportunities, and that's why they offer you the opportunity to do it, is because at the time, as you say, they're a sharing, caring, band who are probably very well in tune with their fan base and realize how much this would mean to them. A really lovely thing to share, and I thank you so much for sharing it with us. It's really, really cool.
No, I overshare this with most people. I think they're I'm bored of this story, Simon. I get it. You were this close to James Hetfield. You saw him playing the Master of Puppets riff. And I was like, I did. He downpicked every single damn stroke. Can't do that anymore. He was doing it back then. And I'd say the other thing as well is that it doesn't really tie into this picture, but you also, and I mean this in a good way, because they do 2.5 hour gigs around about I'm making up times here, but at the 1 hour 45, you saw Hetfield especially, because he moves around more, so it's easier to sort of grasp. You saw him, there was a good 20 minutes where he went into robotic mode, and not in a bad way, just as, I'm a 60-year-old guy, no, 50-year-old guy at the time. This is just my section where I need to almost be substituted mentally, so I can keep going for the rest of the gig. And that was awesome as well. You just see it in his face. Well, that's how I took it anyway, just blank. It's like, you just go through the motions right now. And then, he came alive again for the last bit. And I was like, oh my gosh, you've even got a strategy to get through this. So It's never going to happen again. I don't believe. Well, the Met Club is dead. They do it in a completely different way now. So, you know, I suppose as well to invest something, because I was doing it when I didn't have that much money either. I started when I was like in university because I was like, why not? I'd like to meet Metallica. And yeah, it was just one of those things that I kind of stuck with, and it paid off. So that's cool. That's a nice mini win.
Where can people find you on the Google machines?
So yeah, very depressingly, you can find me on the internet at SimonMiller316. No, I would not have put 316 had I have known. Actually, it ties into this conversation. But if I had known my future, no, I would not go for 316. And now I have a great time with trolls on the internet. When I go, no, it's not an Austin reference, I get so mad. And for some reason, I get a lot of joy from just lying to people. But yeah, you can find me there. Also, I'm on YouTube. That's where I live now. Search for Simon Miller, you'll find me. Also on What Culture Wrestling, and everything else just kind of flows throughout that. And also, if you do live in the UK, you can keep an eye on posters. I'll probably turn up in your town to do some kind of a wrestling something.
Wonderful stuff. Thanks very much, Simon. Take care.
Thank you, man.